it will modulate whatever you feed into dCS, turn it into the 5-bit code, and then apply samples to current sources, but in a quasi-random way. So if we imagine it has to make an amplitude of 5, it'll select 5 gates from the 48 per channel, and it will output that voltage. But then it will select a different 5 and a different 5 and a different 5 and a different 5 6 million times a second.
For the record, the tweeter is also movable.
Yes.
Inside out, it has a 4 millimeter depth adjustment.
Oh, okay.
This helps with the focus when the upper module goes up, which moves up or down in a curve, so the time alignment stays the same to the listening.
Yes.
So when the tweeter moves a little bit inside or outside, it helps with the focus.
Okay.
There is not really much difference, so the frequency response or the distortion is basically the same. So why the hell are we hearing the cables?
Hearing those differences,
So we know from speakers and amplifiers and stuff that these measurements are very useful. However, in cables, they're just not useful. So it led to the question, what then, in terms of technical understanding of what happens in a cable, can then better account for the audible outcomes. And I spent a hell of a lot of time on this, and luckily I had another job, so this I could just do because I could not do it. But
not
yeah.
March Audio, a Not an Audiophile show partner. For the discerning audio enthusiast, performance and precision matter. That's why March Audio employs purified technology to engineer award-winning loudspeakers and amplifiers. Go now to marchaudio.com. March Audio, for the discerning audio enthusiast. And welcome back to Not an Audiophile, the podcast. This is episode 46, season 3. Today we speak to 3 completely different manufacturers of audio products. First, we speak to Ilias from Estelon Loudspeakers from Estonia, and he tells us all about how things work there, how the product gets made, and what's different about it. And there is quite a lot, and if you're familiar with the loudspeaker, you know that it certainly looks different. We then speak to another loudspeaker maker, in this case the designer, Joachim from OePhi, and he gives us the lowdown there. And then finally, we speak to a DAC manufacturer that I'm sure you've all heard of, dCS. As I introduce dCS, I do make the point that not everything they make costs hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you should actually have a listen. Alistair from dCS knows his stuff. So, without any further ado, let's take a listen.
Ilias from Estelon.
Correct.
It's an interesting brand. But firstly, thank you for your time. It's greatly appreciated. You're a busy man.
Very happy. Always happy to talk about our brand.
Do you like to talk about Estelon? It's I think it's a brand that some HiFi fans kind of put out of their mind. They perceive it as only being sort of high end, but you have some affordable loudspeakers, don't you?
You know, this is interesting how each one of us perceives affordable.
Well, I think when I say affordable, I mean clearly some people's budget doesn't extend beyond buying something online for $200. We're not too concerned about. Everyone's got to start somewhere. For the more mature HiFi enthusiast who's had a few systems and wants to elevate it and step up to the next level, I'm guessing, incorrectly perhaps, we can edit this out if we have to, that you maybe start at $20,000 or something like that.
Approx. In Australian dollars, I believe we're starting at 27,000.
Yes, yeah.
But I believe it's a good. I'm quoting entry level. Air quoting entry level product. The one we're actually showcasing this year during this show.
Yes.
But there are some things like that matter when you cannot just take price and number out of context.
No.
Our products are fully handmade, fully produced in Estonia.
Yes.
Which is European standards
Absolutely,
in every
yeah,
aspect.
Absolutely.
That affects everything, the
Of course.
costs, the production costs, of course.
Everyone
and,
gets paid properly.
Exactly, the
Yes.
quality control.
Yes.
And everything happens in-house.
Yes.
And we watch every single step throughout the process. And actually, when I say we, I'm talking about a very small team. And
Well, yeah, that's part of my interest is that you say you do a lot in-house, and I'm interested to what that extends to. For instance, most manufacturers do not make any drive units in-house. They certainly don't make any crossover components. But I get a feeling that you certainly make your enclosures in-house, because they're such an unusual and interesting shape. You must, well, when I say you must, I mean someone's got to make them, but I have a feeling that that you do. But is it a big team? Because the company's been around, I believe, 15 years.
Right, correct. This is our 15th anniversary. As a matter of fact, October, as in a month plus
Is that
15,
right?
it's
Yeah,
our
15
15th
years.
anniversary,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
which is a good milestone for
Yes.
us, I believe.
Yes.
We're well established right now,
Yeah,
we're not
seriously, yes.
a young company anymore. So, and yes, you are correct also about the enclosure. The cabinet shape is one of our biggest selling points. It's very important in our design language because it's not just a nice sculpture.
Well, it is a nice sculpture, but
yeah,
it is more than that.
It is more than
Yes,
that
yes.
because it comes, as Alfred Vasilkov says, the engineer, the chief
Yes.
engineer and the co-founder of the company, it's coming from the engineering, this design. There is this design philosophy and principle we have throughout our whole line of products that, for example, briefly I will describe it. We put the woofer closer to the ground, to the floor.
I've noticed that, yes.
So it can couple with the floor for more energy in the lower end. Then we put the rest of the drivers up higher at the near level height approximately.
Yes, yeah.
There's a reason why we do all these things, but when you connect the dots, it gives you the shape of the speaker.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So that's primarily why they look like that.
Okay, so to some degree, you could almost, you appear to be suggesting it's almost a sub-satellite type system, but melded together with the enclosure joining the two parts to some degree.
That's very correct. The woofer in most of our products acts a little bit like a subwoofer. We have low crossover point, usually at around 75, 80 hertz.
That low, okay, yeah.
Correct, yes.
Which is a passive crossover.
Yes,
so that's some serious components to make that work. Sorry, continue. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's pretty much it.
But that is your classic subsat system, right? It is literally a subwoofer, like you say, crossed over at subwoofer frequencies.
Effectively, yeah. And that's why the rest of the drivers, because the mid-range drivers, they carry a lot of information, a lot of frequency. That's why we keep that distance from the driver, from the low driver, the woofer, a little bit higher, so they can we can avoid the early reflections with the floor.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
if you can picture it, it's easier when I have the speaker next to me to showcase at the same time. Probably a little hard to communicate the details of the design.
They are taller than many speakers. They're quite tall.
They are quite tall.
I mean, your bigger ones are incredibly tall, right?
Yes.
And
our flagship are the Forza model is 170 something.
Wow. Yeah. So that's That's very.
And the Extreme model can go up to 220, if I remember correctly, because it's adjustable. Actually, our Extreme model.
That's one of my questions. We're probably getting to it earlier than I imagined, but I did see one. There has a motorized section.
Right.
That. So. Just tell us a little bit about that. What's going on there?
This is our Extreme model. As a matter of fact, our distributor here, Advanced Audio, has one pair of Extremes on display. It's
where I saw them actually.
All right, okay, good. So you had already an opportunity to see and to hopefully listen to them as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, impressive.
So the reason why there is a motorized upper module, this model is because when Alfred was designing this speaker, he thought, what are the objectives here? We need a bigger system, but why? This should be easier to integrate in bigger rooms.
Okay.
Right. But bigger rooms don't always mean like more square meter surface.
Yes, yeah.
It's also
it's
the
more
ceilings
volume. Yes, the ceiling
that
height.
are high.
Yes,
Correct.
Yes.
And he started placing the speaker into small bases and testing what's happening when we lift the speaker.
Okay.
And he came to the realization that it affects the sound a lot. So he came down with the idea that since the design philosophy is that the lower end, it acts as it acts, like a subwoofer, as we already said.
You want to keep it next to the floor for your boundary enhancement.
But what if we can have the drivers, the upper drivers, movable, and according to the ceiling height, we can adjust from our sitting position with a remote control. And there you are.
I guess you find you sit in your listening chair in the sweet spot, and you literally adjust the height, and you go, oh, that sounds good. So they will lock that in. Is there like a memory position or something?
It actually moves up and down in a total 50 centimeter length.
Yes.
In 9 steps all.
In
all
9 steps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now the remote control actually has an indication from -4 to +4.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can remember that, for example, I had it on -2.
Yeah.
Like in reality, and if you want to behave, once you have them set up in your room, you do that once where is the optimal position and you just leave it. But we can understand that people might want to show off and use it.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a showing off aspect.
Why not, of course,
Yes.
But it's not that hard to...
No, I think we can remember -2.
You can remember one number.
I think we're good.
For the record, the tweeter is also movable.
Yes.
Inside out, it has a 4 millimeter depth adjustment.
Oh, okay.
This helps with the focus when the upper module goes up, which moves up or down in a curve, so the time alignment stays the same to the listening.
Yes.
So when the tweeter moves a little bit inside or outside, it helps with the focus.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Good.
It's still a time alignment thing, I guess.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's very cool. I had a sneaking. When I first saw it, I'm like,
it's a gimmick.
But then I thought, well, I'm sure they've done it properly, and clearly you have. And at that price point, you probably should have, and you did. All of your loudspeakers or enclosures are quite similar to look at. I'm guessing, perhaps wrongly, but are they all made from similar material?
All our speakers are made from a similar material, except the newest A series, which are our entry-level products.
Okay.
Like the Aura that we display here during the exhibition. The A series, our entry-level products, use a thermoformed mineral composite. It's a quite interesting process how these are produced, because the material is in sheets that we cut holes for where the drivers are going to be placed, and then we heat it and we give it this shape.
Wow, okay.
For us, it's always very challenging to find materials that we can use for shaping our cabinets.
Yeah.
And we need to mention that the curves are part of the acoustic sound signature of our models. The curves eliminate diffraction, help with sound dispersion, so they're essential in our design language. So this is the A series material, which is basically a little more affordable. I am air quoting again the term affordable, comparing to the marble-based composite that we use to the rest of the speakers.
Okay, right.
This marble-based composite is fully developed by Alfred as well.
Okay.
Alfred Vasilkov, and it's with this material we use a molding process.
I was wondering that. Yeah. Okay. So you've got molds for each model.
Exactly.
And it's what, in 2 pieces, or how many parts is there to the mold?
The cabinet comes in 1 piece, except the top it needs a lid, let's say.
A
At the
lid,
bottom,
yeah, okay,
at the
yes.
bottom we put the crossover.
Yes.
That's where it is. But the rest of the cabinet is one piece.
Yeah, okay.
Literally.
Yeah. I was admiring the fit and finish of the ones you have on display, and I was admiring from someone who has done a certain amount of spray painting the gorgeous finish. Is it spray painted? Is it?
We use automotive technology, painting technology for our products. It's the same exact process.
Yep.
Yeah, it is spraying, but it is many layers, many coats.
Hey, it's good enough for $1 million car. It's good enough for $1 million. Sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Somewhat less expensive. $250,000.
Exactly. But I mean, not all the colors belong to the $1 million cars. Or not all the finishes, the finish codes. You know, they're not all from $1 million cars. But certainly, customers that ask very, very unique special colors tend to own $1 million cars.
I was going to say, so that's part of your offering as well, is that you can someone wants a particular colour, if they want a lime green to match their Lambo, then
That's
they
exactly
can have
what
that.
it is,
Yeah, of course, and as they should. And you do have a bit of that happen, do you?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, some cool colours we have even sent here to Australia. We recently had a dealer, he requested McLaren orange. And you know, for us it's exciting as well because we have never seen our speakers sometimes in this specific finish, and we look forward to that.
I
You know,
have to say.
and it's not something you would say, "Oh, let's make an orange pair of speakers and see what happens." Or something, you know,
it's a bit expensive for that,
but it always turns out much cooler than we expected, and it's fun. You know, this part of the fun being in that.
I overheard a conversation the other day that some of those colours are licensed or copyrighted, and I had a feeling that McLaren was one of them. Don't look scared. You look concerned.
No.
Have you?
I'm trying to think if there is.
You have to make it very slightly different or something.
No, that's not what
or
it
is
is.
that BS? Because it sounds outrageous. How can you copyright a colour?
If you could. I mean, maybe you can somehow that I'm not aware of. I'm not.
Or
gonna
trademark. I guess.
I mean, I don't know. And to my knowledge, even what I said now, McLaren orange, this is not the actual color code.
No.
What usually happens, again, to my knowledge, don't quote me on everything, but even car manufacturers, they find these RAL codes, they use them, and they just name them, as we also do.
Of course,
as we also do.
Yeah.
You know, we use fancy names. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
Black lava liquid.
Oh,
gloss
yes,
and whatnot.
yeah.
I mean, in reality, it's black gloss.
I mean,
okay, but
that's right. Yeah, colour names are hilarious. You can write an amusing document on. I mean, there's just. I was looking at colour charts the other day for a project, and the names are. I mean, there's someone sitting in a room. I don't know, Googling, tapping away, thinking up, using AI potentially to conjure up these outrageous colour names. But no, so the material's interesting. So So you've got this mould. This is for the more expensive models, and I guess the original models that you did were all this faux marble product.
Marble-based composite. It's a composite that has crushed
resin. It's got
marble, among other elements.
Is it similar to what you would make a fake stone bench top out of? It's got resin in it. It's got a certain amount of marble in it, and it comes in a liquid form.
This is a good question. Yes. This is a good question, but I don't know. This is a material. This composite is patented by Alfred anyway. By Alfred and Paris. So the exact same composition is not used in anything else.
Anywhere else.
But something similar could be, but I'm not aware. I'm not going to lie.
I have a sneaking suspicion you would have more resin in it, but for acoustic properties, for dampening it, for self-dampening reasons. I mean, you wouldn't build a speaker out of rock generally, although some people do.
It's not possible anyway.
No. But so does it have reinforcing materials in it, or is it like, what thickness is the wall thickness, do you think, of the and how the hell do you get it in the mould? And do you is it an injection moulding situation?
It is injection moulding.
Okay.
Yeah. And we basically pour it, this is not the actual hard part, because the molding is pretty straightforward process. It's molding. Then you take this cabinet.
Yes.
But after that, it needs quite a lot of treatment.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Finishing off, yes.
Yeah, but before even the finishing, it
Yes.
requires we have some chambers that they need to heat this cabinet so all the bubbles come, and then you start the finishing process, so it requires some treatment. But it does indeed have very good dampening properties.
Yep.
It's very, very heavy, that helps a lot with stability,
yes.
and this in effect helps with the dynamics for the drivers to perform at their best.
Does it need internal bracing, or it's just open inside?
We separate in some models we separate some drivers with.
You need a sub-enclosure, yeah.
But not in all models. For example, the YB model, the Aura model also, but the Aura model doesn't use this material anyway.
Yep.
It depends. We have to take it by each model individually. In some models, yes, we do use also to eliminate resonances anyway. That's also another reason why we would use braces.
Is Alfred? So what's the situation with the drive units? Is Alfred a bit of a drive unit designer as well, or is he using the best work of other drive unit designers? Because I always wonder about manufacturers who rave on about making their own drivers. At the same time, you can't be an expert at everything. It's because you can't, can you?
Definitely not.
Not as a smaller company. So I guess you're ordering customized drivers, or do you make your own drivers in-house?
So we don't make any drivers ourselves. We don't produce any drivers. In general, in most of our models, we collaborate with Accuton. It's a German manufacturer.
So it's a pretty serious product.
Yes. We collaborate and we have a very good partnership for many, many years.
Yes.
But this is not the only company. We use from Scanspeak, from SEAS, from many companies.
Yes. Yeah.
In our flagship models, the Forza and the Extreme, we use some custom drivers. They're spec'd actually. They're not exactly custom made. They're spec'd for
your purposes.
Exactly. Plus, for example, for the X Diamond model, the woofer, which is ceramic and it's very, very special. It used to be produced, but now it's only produced for us, and that's that. They have discontinued it from the shelf, and now it's only for this specific model. So we have this relationship, and we believe it's best to use the best manufacturers.
I agree. I think it's crazy that you've got to be, certainly for someone like BMW, Bowers & Wilkins, big company, lots of people, lots of money. Of course, you make your own drivers. Why wouldn't you? It's part of their whole equation. But for the next tier down of manufacturer, it makes complete sense to me, at least, to use Accuton, very, very high quality drive units. So what? This is a stupid question in a way.
Before, can I add something about the drivers? And this applies in any components. This is Alfred's philosophy, which I really appreciate as well. He says, we test tons, and so many drivers, so many components for the crossovers, as pretty much everything that's out there.
Yes.
Alfred says, if we reach a point that we cannot use something to reach our vision of the sound, then we might look at this possibility of producing it ourselves.
Okay.
For the time being, we're not there. We don't need to.
Okay. Yep.
In the future, we don't know what.
So if you go super high end, you were trying to make the definitive product, you would have to start making some of your own. I don't know. Well, certainly, probably inductors or maybe capacitors and obviously drive units.
It could be a possibility.
Now we're looking out at the beautiful sunshine this 5-minute period. It was raining 10 minutes ago. We're in Melbourne, so the weather's alternating on a 15-minute basis. But it's not always, the sun is not always shining, and it's not always warm. Not that it's particularly warm in Melbourne, in Estonia. And in fact, someone, and I'm not sure whether it was you or someone else, but someone told me that basically it's horrible 5 months of the year. So this factory of yours must have some serious heating, and I've seen some factories in North America that are a bit like that, where it looks incredibly expensive because so it must be some kind of state-of-the-art facility just to keep the temperature constant. Is that right? No, it's just an old barn. No.
It's probably. Let me start by saying I'm originally from Greece. I grew up in Greece, right? So Greece has a warm, nice climate.
It certainly does.
So
yes.
Moving to Estonia, it was a little bit of a shock to my system, in the first few months or a year, let's say. Here's the thing: unless you live in those conditions, you think that I just can't live here. It's just. That's unlivable.
Well, I do think, as someone who's lived in Queensland for many years and never really suffered much below 20 degrees, it would be a shock to my system. But the heating is great, right? Tell me it's great.
Oh, it is great. It's absolutely great. It's the best. Let's be honest, it's the best. But funnily enough, our system adapts, and it adapts really fast. Mm-hmm. But what was also interesting there is that people have adapted living to those conditions. So, for them, heating is on in September, for example, until next year in May.
Yeah.
So everything is nice and warm indoors.
Yeah.
You can't live otherwise. Same in the factories, same in facilities, same in the shops. So you don't really have to worry about this.
Yeah. But where does the energy come from? What's most of the energy generation? Do you use? I mean, you can't really use solar so much, I guess. Do you use a bit of solar?
They do use a little bit,
bit of wind.
But I can't tell you the percentage.
I
know that they used to rely a lot on gas from Russia, but due to the current situation, and this was, in their view, which of course I agree, it was a great opportunity to get
away
this,
from it.
get away, stop this partnership or whatever you want to call it. And they have moved to buying renewable energy from the Nordic countries, from Scandinavia.
Wow.
Plus coal still.
Yeah.
A percentage.
Nuclear at all?
No. Unfortunately, in general in Europe, we're not very much
gone away from the nuclear. Yes.
They've gone away at some point, but now they realize that they should go. Again, I'm not an expert or anything.
We've sort of gone off at a tangent, and it's not a pet subject of mine, but it only really raises its head when you start. If someone who lives in a warm climate, where you can have a very simple workshop facility, you really don't worry about temperature control. In summer, it's really hot, and you just put up with it and sweat a lot. Whereas you cannot do that in a cold climate. You absolutely, clearly have to heat the.
You're correct. But on the other hand, the thing is that Estonia is a very small country, right?
Yeah.
The population is 1.4 million.
Oh wow, is it that small?
It's that small. So I mean, in the bigger picture, it doesn't affect negatively.
Not at all.
As much, but as a country and in their culture, they love nature, and I know they're doing their best to use sustainable energy and renewable energy and things like that.
But I get your point. 1.4 million people not going to change the world. You could run a diesel generator and it wouldn't really probably matter. Not on a world basis.
That's the thing. Yeah.
So we shouldn't have gone down that rabbit hole. But it just it occurs to me. I mean, it is a conversation that a lot of people are having, and one that I guess we're all thinking a little bit more about. Back to speakers. So, do you, in the wide world of hi-fi stereo systems, is there an amplifier or is there a particular, what is it that Estelon kind of recommend works well with your loudspeakers? Or were they designed with something in mind? Or?
Yes, this is a question, as you can imagine, I get more than once a day.
Yes.
And the answer is always the same. The best amplifier is the one the customer likes. This is the best amplifier.
Okay.
We, of course, do give some recommendations. For example, we recommend solid state because they handle better the lower end, and work better with our speakers.
And that's the kind of sound that you're trying to engineer, is quite an accurate sort of sound that you... And you want solid state to drive that?
You might say that, yeah. But again, this is a little bit... It comes down to preferences. And, at that level... the higher you go in our industry, especially in the ultra high end, if you might say, every small nuance affects the sound. Even the cable, even the length of the cable.
Absolutely.
And it truly comes down to preferences. So. Yes. I mean, I can sit here and write a list about electronics and cables and DACs and turntables and whatnot. Does it really matter what I like? Or
This is right. I couldn't agree more. And I sort of, and it's always part of a visit to a hi-fi show like this, is that you walk along a hallway and you go into room 1, room 2, room 3, room 4, and they all sound quite good, and they are all completely different. So to have a crack at someone's, I mean, it's like we're watching cars drive past. They're all different. Well, they all seem to be quite monochromatic in colour, but they are all different shapes for different purposes. Yes. Yeah, that van. I mean, neither of us want to drive that, but we may need to carry heavy goods. So there's always there's whatever you want. You have a certain perhaps type of music. You have a big space, small space. You prefer the warmth of tubes. Not that tubes always sound like that, etc. So
this is also, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is also why we welcome the competition, even at the speakers level. I mean, you might start having. I'll give you a random example. Like what we're showing here, Estelon with the DVLA. But you might end up realizing, you know what, you like the DVLA, but the Estelon is not exactly what you want. But it's fair enough. It's a fair game. We want people to be happy and get the emotions out of their system. This is the goal. Music. It's not.
Absolutely.
It's not just to tell you or a customer that our products are the best. They are, but
Well, is that, to get back to company philosophy? Is that the goal? To make of Alfred is to just simply make the best loudspeaker in the world? Is that
no? The goal is indeed, as I mentioned, to evoke emotions and. Whenever I do a presentation, we discuss and talk about the system on display and this and that cable and these frequencies cut off on the filter and the driver's size and whatnot and the membrane material. But I like to finish the presentation by saying that in the end, what matters is that all these toys should completely disappear.
Yes.
It shouldn't be about the toys, it should be about the music.
Yes.
And we truly believe that, and we believe that a good system evokes emotion, and we want to believe that our speakers are emotionally engaging products. So that's what we're trying.
Well, I've been
to
emotionally engaged, but I've heard them on occasion, so I think
great.
you may have kicked that goal. So
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Elias. Thanks for your time. Thanks for the insights.
Thank you so much. It was a really nice discussion. I really appreciate it.
It's a very interesting insight, and it's. I mean, I honestly thought Estonia was probably more like 8 or 10 million people. Because geographically, it's not tiny.
It is tiny.
Oh, well, I've been looking at the wrong map.
I think you need to come to get a better understanding of the country and the culture.
Well, feel free. You can buy me a ticket, and I'll be over there in a minute.
We'll do to bring you to our facilities, and we're gonna have more discussions. You get an opportunity to see firsthand and talk with more people in our factory. They all have interesting stories.
I bet they do, because it's a bloody interesting place to live. And just approximately how many people work there? Not a huge amount of people.
Not a huge amount. We're all together, you might say, at around 30. If you include, the painters. I mean, which they are part of the team, of course, but approximately something like that.
So it's a pretty large. Yeah, well, I suppose as soon as you start making cabinets, you need more people.
Mind you, we are at the level now at the stage that we're growing. So we're doing well.
So 30 at the moment, but 40 in a few years' time.
We hope so.
Yeah. All right. On that very positive note, thank you again, Elias, and thank you for your time. And we'll speak to you again. I'll speak to you when I'm at the factory.
Absolutely. Well, now I'm committed to buy you a ticket. If you never hear from me again, it's out of money.
Don't be surprised. Yes. All right. Okay. Thank you.
But thank you so much. I really appreciate
it.
your time.
A pleasure. Talk to you again.
Are you familiar with Edgar Kramer? Well, you should be. He's Australia's most renowned hi-fi reviewer. And his website, soundstageaustralia.com, is, well, quite amazing. Incredibly detailed, well-written reviews on all sorts of interesting hi-fi components, interviews with industry luminaries, factory tours, and of course news. Don't forget, Soundstage Australia is part of Soundstage Global Network. So when you're finished with this podcast, go to soundstageaustralia.com and check it out.
Good afternoon, I'm here at the StereoNet 2025 HiFi show, and I have with me a marvellous bloke, a bloke of some renown, so he tells me. It's, I'll let you say your name, sir.
Yeah, so my name is Joachim Juhl. I'm from Denmark, and I have a company that's called OePhi, and we try to make music for people.
In the form of?
Cables and speakers.
Yeah, I've heard the loudspeakers, they're magnificent. And
thanks.
Of course, I did also hear the cables because they were connected to the loudspeakers. Mate, we were chatting before about design, objective measurements versus subjective, and the emotion quotient, I suppose. What were you saying before about?
Yeah, so I think there is a kind of a long-standing feud in audio, but also something on social media that always get kind of overthrown. But I think the point is that we have some people who are very clever, who are really good with measuring equipment and loves kind of the scientific explanation behind things.
Yes.
Really important.
Yeah.
We also have people who use their ears, who listen to music, and to want a certain emotional engagement with the music.
Yeah.
And for me, I think the whole point with my brand, but also the art of doing good music equipment, is to combine those two.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, there is no theory, there is no measurement that can tell us how we feel about the music. So we can do a lot of descriptions of nature and the things we throw into nature, our speakers and cables and all of that. However, we cannot really meaningfully account for what that means to how we perceive music, how much the music speaks to us when we reproduce it through either this speaker or that amplifier. So I think we have kind of like an epistemic void between these two camps, which is not about keeping them separate, but about
it's a fusion. You want to get a fusion.
We need to integrate them, and that's the whole point. We need both. One without the other is a bit either meaningless if you're just technical for the sake of the technicalities, or it's kind of without direction and without reproducibility if you don't know why things sound good. So we kind of always look for these explanations. So I think this is my never-ending quest.
As is myself and a whole lot of other designers. In a sense that where it's the technical side and designing from a technical point of view to get great measurements, low distortion, but also the correlation between what we measure and what we hear, and then how we emote. And that's a constant. I'll use three things: measure, make a correlation with what we're hearing, but ultimately, does it sound, or does it make me want to move, dance, cry, whatever? So there's that's what I'm garnering from your point.
Exactly, and I think also because I have a background where still working as an academic for over a decade, and I think it's always about asking the right questions. Because you can spend endless amount of resources and time going down a rabbit hole. So you need the ears, you need the understanding of what you're trying to achieve to guide the right questions, so that you can, in the technical way, look in the right direction to solve something meaningful. And I think this is very important. But so one of the questions I had at the beginning when I set out to develop cables was that if you measure them by established standards, there is not really much difference. So the frequency response or the distortion is basically the same. So why the hell are we hearing the cables?
Hearing those differences,
So we know from speakers and amplifiers and stuff that these measurements are very useful. However, in cables, they're just not useful. So it led to the question, what then, in terms of technical understanding of what happens in a cable, can then better account for the audible outcomes. And I spent a hell of a lot of time on this, and luckily I had another job, so this I could just do because I could not do it. But
the not principle.
Yeah,
I mean that's what's powerful about that, Jakob, is that it is the not principle, and that's it. In other words, you've been compelled to keep going with this, despite you've got a great career. Well, allow me to say that, a great career in academia. Would you say that?
I think I've done a lot of interesting things, been some interesting places.
Yet the bastard's still pulling you back in.
Okay. It's sort of like a drive where I just need to look into this. Yeah. And so whether I do something else, I would still need to do this. So now I'm just kind of trying to set up my life to just do this more, because I love it and I meet great people and we have lovely conversations, and we're all kind of a bit weird, but I think that's why everything works so well. So the thing is that I did a lot of experiments, and what I came from was designing speakers from age 15, where you kind of roll your crossovers by hand. You don't simulate.
Hand. I call it hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah. So you get a lot of burns with the soldering iron, and I use a lot of these. Don't know the English word, but when you put up your clothes to hang to dry.
Pegs.
Yeah, you use those. So we do a lot of weird things that customers never see, but this is the craft of actually wanting to change components, like what happens if I reduce the inductance by 1% or something, like
one turn or whatever.
Just like so small differences that if we measured it probably wouldn't make much difference.
Exactly.
But sometimes you hit something and that's just right.
Yeah.
And I figured out, even when I was like 15, 16, that I could really discern these small differences, that in a crossover it was just so sensitive to minuscule manipulations that I always went by ear back then.
So in a sense it's almost, I'm going to use analogous to, I don't know why I think of fighting, but let's just say people who street fight, that's a bad, but anyway, we'll keep running. It's knowing what happens in that situation, or playing football or whatever, skill sets where it's actually when you play against an opponent, and you can have these skills, but if they're not actually applied to a real world situation. So what you've been doing is the same, dare I use me as an example, in the 70s or and 80s when I started designing, that's exactly what we had to do.
That's the craft. It's a bit like if you're a chef and you don't know how to taste the food, like how on earth will you ever elevate it from okay to supreme? And I think you need to adjust your own measuring equipment, the ears, which by all means...
Well, that's the training, isn't it?
You need to enable that when I do this with my hands, it has this consequence in the audible realm. And you can make sense of that, and
it's discernible, and you can say, okay.
And then I think we pattern recognize, so we know that when I do this, I hear this. When I hear this, another speaker, I've tried that 20 years ago. I can kind of hear that's what's going on in the crossover or something else. So we kind of become super instruments that can detect very, very specific problems that we don't even know how to measure.
We are one of the last instrument, really. So that's a great way of describing it. Yeah.
So what I came back to was that so I developed the listening skill, but I didn't know what exactly was the technical reason. So with cables, what I then did was I did a hell of a lot of experiments.
So you transitioned from the speaker
the problem with the speaker design was that it was always conditioned by the equipment I used it with.
Yeah.
So all the cables I had, they did something good and something bad.
Sure.
So, and I just didn't want to make speakers that were tailored to compensate for something else, because then I feel like that's not the best way to go about it. So there's no system that will be 100% neutral, but at least you have to understand the problem, so you also know when are you listening to the problems you shouldn't compensate for, and when are you actually doing.
So in other words, you basically thought, I'm not happy with the speaker cable scenario.
Yeah.
And you're telling me you deviated. Perhaps deviated, but you deviated to cables to work on that.
Yeah, to solve that problem, because I figured out how much of an influence that was also for the perception of the total speaker. So anyway, so doing a lot of tests and a lot of trials, I kind of ended up figuring out that, a little bit by accident, that if I manipulated the conductors in a particular way, then all of a sudden the sound quality just went through the roof. And it was a simple manipulation deviating from something I kind of knew but didn't work particularly well, and then all of a sudden something happened. And that led me down kind of a route where, okay, now I had something that works, but I actually not quite sure exactly why it works and why it wouldn't work if I do this and that. And that then took further a long time to cultivate that, to really understand how to manipulate that topology,
that parameters.
That way of making the cables that I can scale it. Because what I love to do is not just make something, oh, this sounds good, don't touch it. I like to understand why it sounds good and why it won't sound good. So then I can reuse that. I'm solving kind of not one problem, but kind of a whole family of problems, which then can be applied on other speakers and other products, etc. But anyway, what I then discovered was that the best explanation was to look into the timing behavior of the cable. That the phase correlation is one way to describe it, but the phase is made up of a very complex filter effects that whether it's in cables, analog or digital or wherever in the chain, is actually the same kind of compromises you see. So there is no kind of way to get around this. But I discovered that basically the best explanation I could find was that if we in a cable, we have parasitic components, which is part of why the cable works, but it's also part of why it sounds in a particular way. And those parasitic components form oscillations.
Yes.
They articulate at a certain point. They have kind of like a certain phase behavior between them, and then it's a resonance.
Yes.
So if you have multiple of those all will actually modulate the timing front of the signal, which then means that even a complex cable with more conductors can sound much less dynamic, because all of a sudden the wave front going through the cable is actually smeared. So it was a way to kind of understand that the minuscule timing differences inside a cable was the key to make a cable in an audible sense disappear.
That's brilliant. Sounds.
but so and then being a researcher, I kind of like so I cannot be the only weird guy looking into this. So I actually found some research done about 15 years ago where people tested this on real people, not audiophiles, so untrained ears, and the conclusion was that they went to the threshold of the measuring equipment and people could hear those timing differences. And we're talking about like 5 to 7 millionths of a second.
My jaws just dropped.
Yeah,
great.
So now we have the key to why is it that when you alter a filter slope and it makes barely any noticeable difference on a simulation or measurement, but you can hear it.
Yes, we've both gone through that.
So this cable technology then brought me back to then, okay, how do I now go about speaker design? Because now I know what to focus on. Besides that, we need kind of the balance of the speaker to sound nice and pleasant, and we also preferably want distortion not to be a lot. We prefer it down, but without kind of sacrificing other things. And that other thing that we don't have a good method for approaching is the time domain.
Yes.
So when I go about speaker design now, what I do is that I start with the time domain and then I work backwards. So I don't want to combine drivers that I cannot, through the crossover, integrate in a way that is so accurate that it cheats the ear to hear the drivers acting as one. And then I go backwards and I work with the how do I then get these to also sound balanced. But if I start with the balance, then you end up in a corner. So, the balance is kind of good, but the drive integration isn't quite there.
Yeah.
And then it's really difficult because you end up figuring out that all the choices you made, you have to redo those. So this is a completely different way.
That's why you go with the time domain.
Yeah, I have to start with that.
Yeah.
And then if I can't get that right, even in a simulation, it's not a project I want to undertake. It's just like, it's not meaningful for me because I know if the time domain is not right, then you have all sorts of audible outcomes, which actually is not about the frequency response, but it's just how our human processing in the brain takes a time problem and then think, this sounds lean or edgy or fat or slow or something like that. But if you kind of sort the time domain, then the whole voicing problem of the speaker is sort of like, it's never been easier.
Stitches up.
Yeah.
Yeah, two speaker, or if it's a two-way, two speakers, one voice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
literally.
exactly. And it just sort of like you just instantly hear that it sounds natural.
Yes, because the brain's not processing and trying to work out what it's hearing.
Why is it not sounding like things that it's kind of born to detect?
Yeah.
Because the whole time domain, I think, is just so critical to understand our sensitivity as human beings to something not timing right in the musical sense, but also reverbs or kind of articulation that sort of like, we're just so sensitive to this.
We are.
So this is what I'm bringing in through technical means. And that's why I now, in the beginning, when I started to make speakers, it was all by ear. But now I can use a simulation tool, not to tell me how to design, but to ask very specific questions and then optimize for very specific outcomes.
Intelligent design, but it's intelligence, but with the ability to, emote to the music, but also that timing so critical.
Yeah.
And then you're not actually having to work. You're not working when you're listening to the music.
Yeah, you can just relax.
And I did that up there. I'm not pissing in your pocket, but and when you were playing UB40 that first time I saw you through the door, I looked down into the room and I saw you grooving to your to the UB40 tracks, and I thought, this bloke's. I don't know whether he designed speakers, and then I realised you did design the speakers. That's a good sign. And I sat next to you, and there's that sort of rhythmic but it's also the cohesion between. Well, I don't want to use words because it flowed.
Yeah.
I was talking about ebb and flow before. What was your term for it?
Was it tension and it's like sustained tension and release?
That's it.
So you kind of get that, I think, because flow, I think, is one really good term for a system that doesn't sound mechanical.
That's it.
I hate mechanical sound. Yeah, some systems just sounds mechanical, and it's just there's no way getting about it. But once you get beyond that, things sounds easier, but also more continuous. And then I think the other thing is when musicians play the instruments or sing, they have these minuscule dynamic kind of contrasts in how they do things, and this I found to be much more intelligibly when you get the time domain correct, because it's not about the ultimate dynamics, it's about the alacrity, the nimbleness,
the nuance,
it's all in the fineness, and these things just line up in a way where it just made my job as a designer so easy.
Which is brilliant, because that came from the cable design. That came from the bloody cable design.
Exactly.
And learning about phase and how that affects the cables, thereby QED, loudspeakers have to be designed from the same principle.
Yeah. So that's it. We say timing is everything, and it sounds like a kind of a overused thing, but the point is really that we mean timing as this is what we designed for, because this is the principle we start with, to always say we have to solve this first and foremost, and we will never do anything that compromises that. So for instance, usually when you go from one cable range to another, they tend to sound different, so maybe better, maybe not better, depending on who designed them, but people kind of know that you need to listen to the cable, and then there might be something just sounding different from the same manufacturer. But we don't have that problem, because we solve the main issue. So all the cables tonally just sound. So in our system up there, we're using cables from 3 different ranges.
Okay.
And tonally, I couldn't care less, because they all sound the same.
Yes.
However, of course, the finesse, the dynamic headroom, all of that, it's just better when you go up the ranges, because we do get more bandwidth, we do get kind of more capability.
Right.
However, they never compromise the same timing principles that are already solved in the first one.
The prime directive.
Exactly. Because when you add complexity to a design, time domain will most likely suffer. So you need to know how to do that without sacrificing.
I won't say the secret sauce, or but it's that technology.
It is a technology that we developed, and I haven't seen or heard of anybody else kind of coming about solving these things this way. So it makes life really fun to kind of also take my research background and then fold that into my hobby of audio, and then coming up with kind of like unique solutions, and we get really good reception from both the market reviewers and others in the industry, and it just so fun.
And I think the fact that you said hobby, then that's actually not a pejorative. I think actually the hobby sense spiritually keeps you going.
Yeah.
Because
I'm not doing it for the money. The money is just a means that I can make more for others.
Yeah, of others. And continue your research and improving. So
exactly.
I think that's and not, well, I don't want to bring me into it. I will do this a little bit. It started as a hobby, a passion, and really it's still that hobby part, that aspect of sort of a total absorption. I'm absorbed by it. Anyway, it's not about me. It's about you. So, sorry. So in a sense, you studied. What did you study at university in Denmark?
I studied a new engineering program that was called Design and Innovation. So it was kind of very well connected with mechanical engineering.
Yes.
But we didn't just stay with that. We also had to do programming, fluid mechanics, thermodynamics, 3 levels of mathematical analysis, and all of that. In conjunction with that, we had to have industrial design courses, and we learned ethnographic field study methods. So it's kind of like a really kind of
broad,
very
eclectic.
Broad. But also that it means that I think from the get-go, from that education was to understand the problem before you look for the tools to solve them. Because if you have a hammer, everything can look like a nail. It's just that they're not equally good nails, and you might not get the outcome you really want. So I think that the main thing is to understand the phenomenon we are interested in, understand how do we define the problems, and then also the problems that we actually can do something meaningful to. Because I think that's the other part of design, is that you kind of need to also just accept that no product will ever be perfect. But you want to sort out the most important things for the musical outcome.
So it's ultimately it's about, as you said, it's the
picking your battles.
Yeah,
do it cleverly and then win them.
Yeah. Well said, mate. Well said. So you've effectively got this. Now we have to talk a bit about the speakers, because I have a passion for that as well.
Yeah.
So the speakers have been out since. Well, you started during COVID, is that right, on the speakers? Or when you returned back to the quest of the loudspeaker, was that?
So I've been doing speakers for 28 years.
Yeah.
I've been selling speakers.
How old are you, mate?
40. I'm 43.
Oh, sorry, I didn't want to mention that. Now, 43. So you started
at a very young age. Yeah. And I think it's important, because I think you learn differently. You kind of form your brain in a different way when you start early. Because you kind of like it's a bit like riding a bicycle. So for me, listening to a crossover,
you're never going to fall off.
It's just intuitively something. I don't have to work for it. I think because I did all that many hours. I did to battle with the resistors and
funnily enough, as we were talking before the mic was switched on, we were relating to each other. I started in the 1980, effectively sort of fiddling around with loudspeakers and starting on that quest as well. And we didn't have design software. I had a Neutrik chart recorder and the old formulas and working all that sort of stuff out. But it got down to literally what you're saying. But that learning and remembering how each change of the component,
and knowing the importance of listening and evaluating, and also saying one thing is the specs, another thing is how does it then work when you put it in to work, and I think. This is just a kind of, it's not to be hyper skeptical about new things. It's just, I need to understand what that then means. What does this new technology translate into when I use it? And then figuring out how to use it, because that's the next question. How do I then make it?
That scientific grounding.
Yeah, but listening and I think having the highest respect for the human hearing capacity.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I think when we talk about measurements, it should never be either or. It should be measurements is just another way of understanding how the world works. Listening is another way. And if you think one has a hierarchy over the other, it better be the hearing, because we are making it for enjoying music, not for enjoying measurement graphs.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's the only logical way of going about it.
Yeah.
To be honest. So the speakers were like, I started a speaker development project in conjunction with making cables. So I was about to launch the cables, and when I was waiting for that, I collaborated with PureFi because I became friends with Lars Risbo, who is he's a genius in math and designing Class D amplifiers. If you look into him, amazing person, but we became really good friends during COVID because we analyzed the corona models, the math behind that, and then we kind of figured out, so you're Lars Risbo, you're the guy in audio? Yeah, well, maybe we should talk about that too. So we don't even know each other from audio, but we became friends through that, and then he said, okay, come and talk with us in PureFi. So we had kind of a project that we never realized in the end, but where I was sort of working in conjunction with them to develop a floor-standing 2.5-way speaker, and then
the one we heard upstairs.
It eventually became that, but that's a much later iteration. Okay. However, but the fundamental work started with that. Also, my approach to start using purified drivers, which I actually didn't know before then, but I kind of came to realize this is an incredible technology, so let me have a play with it, because I really love to see what I can do with that.
Yeah.
So I kind of started to develop speakers then, and then we kind of shelved that project.
Circa 19. Oh my God, that. Sorry, mate. That's my vintage. Circa 2001. When did you start doing that?
So this was the winter 2020, switching to 2021.
Okay, in the midst of that.
In the midst of that, COVID, and then I had the cable review coming out, and then all of that started as a business, and I sort of converged more and more into that. But I still continued doing speakers, and I made them for friends, and some of them got some really good speakers at really good price, but I kind of kept on doing that because I've always been making speakers for friends, and then I sort of cultivated that model into my own, which became the Eminence 2.5, which I kind of made, but officially in terms of selling it more like an OePhi product. That became a thing about 2022, and I brought it for the first public exposure because my Swedish distributor, he bought a pair for his store, and then we brought them for a HiFi show, and actually it got picked up by one of the reviewers from the year who heard that speaker. The year, and he was sort of oh, this is fantastic, and he wrote about it, so it went into the report.
The thing is that I can remember your brand and going, hearing good reports.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it's only been 3 years.
Yeah.
Because and I was thinking it was a brand that had been around for quite a while. The ear.
Yeah.
Now that's a magazine or online magazine in the UK.
Yes, and I think it's. I have to say a few good things about that magazine because there is a lot of politics in HiFi, and the more money, really. But there is. So I think that there are a few magazines, a few online magazines where they have less of that, and where they are more open to new things. And the ear has been great because it's a well-esteemed magazine, and they have reviewed other good speakers that got Speakers of the Year award. You don't know anything.
I don't know anything about that. But that's a point, because they did. Just to your point, I was surprised with our speaker. Yeah, I know what's happening. Andrew's going to give me a hard time. We got an award from those guys as well. But we're some unknown Aussie brand, and we actually got that. They're open. So there's, as you said, politics plays a role.
But they are much less prone to be affected by that, and I really love that about them. So it's not to say that they are beyond that, and you also have an economy that needs to work and so on. But they're a really nice bunch of reviewers, and Jason Kennedy, who's the editor.
Right.
So our story with the ear is very intimate because when I first sent my cables for review, guess whom I sent it to? The ear. So Jason said, these are probably Chris Kelly, he's your guy. So he reviewed them, editor's choice, he was just gobsmacked, and that brought us on the radar. And then now, independently, some other bloke from the ear who travels around to these shows, he then heard my speakers. He had no idea that they'd done a review of my cables a couple of years before.
I love it.
So completely independently, he's just these speakers are really something. And then he wrote a really nice report, which in itself wasn't kind of a big thing, but again, it was sort of like a validation that what I'm doing has a place in the market. And it's just interesting.
It confirmed that, well, this is worth keeping up.
Yeah.
For want of better words.
So having speakers now with a retailer, having a mention in the ear, led me to sort of like knowing that I already knew it beforehand, but I will have to launch my speakers at some point. But I used the cable business to finance kind of going into something, brilliant. Because making speakers, the hardware is really expensive,
yes,
and it's difficult to do in small numbers.
Yes.
So it's not cheap.
No.
But anyway, I used the success of the cable business to then kind of be able to actually buy the drivers, the cabinets, get all of that sorted, so we also can deliver. And then the breaking point was probably the turn point, I might rather call it, was that in late 23 I sent my first speakers to the UK, and then HiFi, who then was my only dealer there, he just loved them, and it was like this is just out of the world. Like, I've never heard anything like that. And then he brought them to some reviewers. So we got like our small stand mount with Jason Kennedy, because the idea was that they were actually supposed to go to Chris Kelly because he's such a nice bloke, and I was quite sure he's going to get them. And then Jason said, well, send them to me first, and then he snatched them. so he wrote a review, and then we also got a review from that was coming up in HiFi. I'm so bad with all these names, but David Vivian, who wrote for
I know that name.
he wrote for kind of a broader another magazine. But anyway, so HiFi Choice. It was.
I know. Yeah. HiFi Choice got you.
So what then happened was that early 2024, then these reviews broke, and people noticed, and then it was like, okay, so we might as well kind of actually do a full line. So from January 24 to about March, I kind of completed the range.
Right.
But I knew the recipe.
No.
So I kind of knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I went into collaboration with CS to develop our own mid woofer. So we also had like a cheaper model, because purified woofers are not cheap. Good, but not cheap. And so we kind of completed the range
with CS
exactly.
How do you pronounce it?
CS?
Is it CS?
CS, yeah.
Right. Just want to make sure from
and in the meantime, we were kind of being picked up by a UK distributor, Aird, and this is amazing. Like, it also just shows you how people in the business, there's still people who are so enthusiastic about all the right things.
Open.
So Fraser, who runs Aird, he booked a ticket and he came to my basement. And it was a bit of a mess, but I tried to make it look better. And he came and he heard the speakers and cable, and he was just like, "We're just gonna do this. This is amazing." So even as a small brand, having not an established big facility, big money, and all of that, there's still people out there looking for that unique quality that I think is so important to maintain. Because in my opinion, I will never focus on the mass market. I don't want to do a mainstream product where if you ask 100 people, most of them would like that.
Yes.
I rather want to say, I do this, I know how to do this, I'm probably within that definition the absolute best at it, and then the right people will come to me for that reason.
Yeah.
And then the market will show me what that means. But I don't want to try to kind of appeal so broadly that the identity of what I do doesn't speak clearly. So it's a very honest product. It's my product. Some will love it, some will not. And I think it's much better to have a variety of different approaches, and then we have a market that is rich in choice.
Well said. Yeah, so true. Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant.
So that was the trajectory, actually starting to become like a speaker brand, and then now people discover us because of the speakers. Oh, you do cables. But
so the genesis with
but both product categories stand on their own legs. They work independently, but together they do even more of that magic that we can do.
Yeah, once you get the combination of your cables with your speakers, it sort of will go off, as I heard just before.
we both went to university, but then how kind of that worked into our approach to design speakers. What I realized, because I started at age 15, so I started making speakers way before I started studying engineering. So I think that always brought me that kind of slightly kind of other view to this thing than just the math, just the formulas, all of that. So my degree was not particularly focused on speaker design at all. I tried to kind of weave it in where I saw it was useful somehow, but overall it wasn't. So I took some additional courses somewhere else where I did acoustics. And what I really got from that is that even though in Denmark we have like a huge kind of heritage with H.C. Ørsted, electromagnetism, all of that, and probably
it's a hotbed over there. Even though it's cold.
But in the university part, I think that hotbed was probably like predating me with like 60, 70 years. So that probably was back when CS, Dynaudio, HiFi, Peerless, all of those things came out. ScanSpeak, we can make sense. I don't mind ScanSpeak. They make some great products. But they used to be much more kind of a combined bunch than breaking out from each other. So the whole story about what happened from the kind of when CS went to Norway and
CS were based in
CS didn't start in Norway. No. So remember we had this professor and he was talking about kind of the whole course, and it was kind of like a very broad course going into like how sound propagates in air opposed to water and reflections and blah blah blah. But some of the things were also about loudspeakers, and he said that a closed box is always the best. And I was just sitting there, oh my fucking god, this is just under what conditions and what are you designing for? So just completely taken out of context. So I went up to him afterwards and I didn't want to do this in public, but just did, and it's sort of like,
you're a gentleman.
So I don't agree. I really don't agree, because I think you have to look at what are the kind of the design objectives. So a closed box is very good for certain things, but it came about more to solve a problem in the driver design. And nowadays with modern drivers, I don't think closed box will be the most adequate way of going about these things. And he was just like, but at the end of the day, I just think it sounds best.
You said that to him?
He said that. He said that.
He said that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was just saying, well, I really can't learn anything here in this regard. They don't get it.
Well, he's not open.
Well, and I think it's just like this thing about when you don't want to explore, you don't want to learn, you don't want to question.
That's the way. You're right.
And then you're done.
Yeah.
And just it feels hard to say this, but when a university does that, it also just shows it's becoming obsolete. Yes. So anyway, I had my own trajectory until then, and then I kind of kept on doing my things, and then I just had to do things my own way and figure out my own way to go about these things. Always read the books, but also read behind the books. Under what conditions are they kind of talking about these things? So as we kind of talked about before, but I think we didn't have the mic there, that what we need to understand is that when we, for instance, talk about gravity or other constants in nature, things like that, where we can kind of quantify and we can say we have formulas to understand this and all that, what we have are descriptions. They are not the phenomenon. Yeah. So the world is endlessly more complex and only operates the way that we know them to operate under certain conditions. So when we read a textbook, you have to understand the conditions under which that is valid and recorded and so on. So once you change something, actually what that textbook describes might not be what applies to what you're doing. Yeah. And you can use that as a design principle to kind of work around, because in my opinion, physics will always do what physics does. However, if you're a clever designer, you can stop working against physics and you can use physics to your own advantage.
With it.
With it, exactly. Yeah. So you kind of don't twist the arm on the back of a design to make it do something it doesn't naturally want to do. And I think this is a very important aspect of doing, especially speaker design, but any audio design, is to understand these principles so you line up the fundamental design properties or choices in a way so you don't
harness it. I'm going to say I wanted to throw a word in, harness it rather than right.
But also you align things in a certain way from the get-go, thinking about acoustics, about box design, about crossover design, about all of these. You have to think about that together. Yeah. And then you make a design in which these things doesn't combat each other, but they actually work for you
in
to make it simpler
to
to do what you need to do.
And there's a whole lot of things there, isn't there?
Yeah. We could keep on
There's
going.
a fucking whole lot of things there that sort of and I'm putting my hands in the air and moving like a Rubik's cube. You know, you're constantly in and then I shouldn't even be using the word battle.
Yeah.
You're trying to take the battle out of it so it works.
You want to make it into a play.
That's it.
And have fun with it. And there is always multiple ways of going about it. So it's not that there's only one way, this is the right way. So I think it's always being open. I love to listen to also your speakers that are brilliant and other speakers. And for me, I can hear what's going on. But it doesn't mean that I'm not looking for inspiration, because I'm always trying to understand what I do.
But you're also open I suppose you're open to other things, because there's always a possibility that might be a better way of doing something. So I think that's brilliant in itself.
Yeah.
When is a system good, Joachim?
When it's good? I think when you stop to think about the system and just want to enjoy music, and you want to hear dirty recordings, you want to hear fun music, you want to hear soulful music, and you just kind of get to that point where you're not thinking about the system having any technical challenges of conveying that, but you just get into the music, and then you know a system is good. And it can be cheap, it can be expensive, it doesn't really matter.
Absolutely, yeah.
It just has to be right, in the sense that it ends up being driving you to wanting to listen to more music.
Yeah.
So what I love is when people get our stuff and they end up listening to more different kind of music, because then I know that the system is doing something right.
Yeah. You can go on that quest and searching out and seeking out new music. On that note, musical note, I think we better let you get back upstairs. I don't want you to be missing in action.
Thanks a lot, Brad. It's been wonderful.
It's an honour. Thank you, mate. Talk soon.
HeyNow HiFi. Go and speak to Jeff Haynes at HeyNow HiFi today. Or if you don't want to speak to him, and you should, but if you don't, check out the website, heynowhifi.com.au. But speak to Jeff. He has an amazing range of products, many exclusive to his own store, but certainly all are very carefully selected to offer incredible performance at entirely sensible prices. heynowhifi.com.au. StereoNet. Find your tribe. Hi-Fi and home cinema forums, classified ads, reviews, and of course, news. StereoNet's got a little bit of everything. StereoNet.com, a proud sponsor of Not an Audiophile. So here this afternoon with Alistair from dCS, who has very kindly given us some of his time. Well, we don't know how much time, but from what I learned speaking to him earlier, he could go on with some very interesting facts for a good long time. Alistair, thanks for coming.
It is my pleasure. Yep. I was at the Melbourne show last year and absolutely loved it. So it's been something my wife's become quite frustrated watching me tick the days off the calendar until the flight over.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. Melbourne is the best city in Victoria. No, it's a great place, great venue, and the weather has come good, so it's nice. Now, we also have here David Carrazza. Almost forgot about David there for a second, but we have David sitting in here. And in fact, David's going to ask most of the questions because he is a very knowledgeable digital kind of guy, and I am not.
Thank you, Andrew. Cue.
But I'm going to ask a couple of questions first, because when we spoke earlier, we're talking about general stuff. Now, dCS, everyone's thinking, oh, I'm not the slightest bit interested. dCS is uber high-end, unaffordable, bollocks, right? I mean, that's a ridiculous statement, because it's clearly, we've got a piece open in front of us, and there's one thing it ain't is bollocks. It's space shuttle technology. So the thing that I want to announce early in this segment, though, is that you have affordable pieces. And I don't just mean affordable like under 100,000, I mean quite affordable. So we'll get to that in a second. But general roundup, we were talking about Oxford versus Cambridge. Can we just go back to that conversation for a second?
We certainly can. And I'm going to start with something completely different, just to be really annoying. My past life before working for dCS, I ran a shop in Oxford, and we were analog specialists. The guy that started the business, Kiwi, he started with a turntable that he designed called the Oxford Acoustics Crystal Reference. It was this monster deck. All the electronics were in this pedestal. There was a pendulum in the pedestal that offset the rotational force of the platter. Platter was a brass acrylic thing. So if you wanted to come in and listen to an amplifier or a pair of loudspeakers, we'd be setting up an SME or a Tech DAS and a Graham arm, and we would nerd out over all things analog.
Okay.
At the shop, we carried what were at the time perceived as the high-end digital brands. Neither exist these days. It was Krell Digital, it was Wadia.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
we thought that we had the best of the best there, but we didn't use them because there was either something that they were incapable of delivering that we loved about the analog, or there was something they kept delivering that we didn't like about the digital.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Well, yeah.
And there was one day where one of the guys from dCS happened to be driving past us and turned up at the shop and offered, well, do you want to, I've got in the back of my car.
So you used to get the front door locked, obviously.
Or only when people from dCS came past. He introduced himself and said, I've got the Vivaldi here, it's our new flagship, and this was a few years ago now. I'd read the reviews and I thought, no sane person spends that on digital. You're welcome to show us what it does, but I think your time will be better spent elsewhere. And he showed it to us with a pair of Wilson Sasha. It might have even been Watt Puppies back then. But a kind of Sasha derivative. I think we were using audio research amplifiers, and it was spellbinding. I had never heard anything like that digital, and it blew away all of my preconceptions about it, and he left with an order. And all of a sudden, we were a dCS dealer, and I didn't have a clue what to do with the bloody thing. But also, I didn't understand what made it different. And this is where we come back to Oxford versus Cambridge.
Yes.
I live in Oxford. The business is based in Cambridge, has always been based in Cambridge. And people know the rivalry between the two universities, and the boat race and whatnot. And they say,
drinking competitions, that kind of thing.
Indeed. People ask which is the better city, and I do have to sigh each time, but there's no question Cambridge is the better city.
But why?
Well, as soon as you get outside of the Oxford city centre, there is nothing. It's farmland and little villages.
Okay.
And as soon as you get outside of Cambridge city centre, it's the tech centre, it's the Silicon Valley of the United Kingdom.
Absolutely.
And it's because Cambridge has this wonderful way of taking hugely talented people, engineers, graduates, and helping build them a viable business.
When you say Cambridge, you mean Cambridge University?
Cambridge University. Specifically, there's a section of Cambridge Uni that was called Cambridge Consultancy. So they, in essence, they founded dCS. Along with an Oxford graduate, because we are smarter. There was a gentleman called Mike Story who founded the company. So he led a team of signal conversion specialists, SCS, and we were put in touch with various aviation firms. The challenge was go and make a radar.
That's right, yeah.
So there were trials on at the time. The radar was called the Blue Vixen, and it revolved around a concept of decorrelation of errors.
Yes.
The problem a lot of manufacturers in audio try to get past is we all buy from the same places when you're looking at electronic components, by and large. The problem is that nothing is ever actually the quoted spec.
Come on.
And
occasionally it must be close.
Oh, occasionally it will be spot on, but you look at resistors, they should be plus minus 5%. Well, in fact, they should be plus minus less than that, but they're often quite significant deviations. Yes. So the whole dCS concept is decorrelation of error.
Okay.
And with the radar system, it provided the best or the longest ranged radar. So it was adopted by the Royal Air Force. It's put in the Sea Harrier. I believe the Tornado jet used the Blue Vixen as well. What the company realised was we had a device that was incredibly good at turning a continuous signal into a finite one. So they repurposed that, and it became the world's first 24-bit analog to digital converter, which we put into Studio World.
Okay.
It had a snappy name. It's called the 900.
Correct.
900 had an iterative change. We called it the 904, and this is in the late 1980s. It was all based around an FPGA. So we've been doing FPGA work for going on towards 40 years now. That allowed us to, over time, update the 904. So it started life as the first 24-bit 96 kilosamples a second compatible converter, but we updated it to be 192K compatible. Gave the guys in the studio space significantly wider transition bands, the ability to have less of an issue with aliasing, and digital filtering kind of came on from that. When SACD was on the drawing board, we worked on some D2D converters. People ask about upsamplers and why you bother, and you can't make something better than source, and Nyquist sampling theorem suggests that you don't need anything beyond 40K to accurately get. So the D2D converters really started with the introduction of SACDs. With a 1-bit signal, there's nothing you can do in mastering. So the D2D converters were essentially there to decimate the SACD feed, or the DSD feed, so that the engineers could work on it and then transcode it back into DSD for the release. After that, the logical step was, we've done A to D, we've done D to D, we should probably do a D to A. The 950 was the first 24-bit 96K compatible DAC, later the 954, 192K compatible. The problem with
what year was the 192?
I think that's getting into the early 90s at this point.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, and they still work. We still service them.
Okay.
That's part of the problem. Was
you would like to sell some more.
Exactly. So the pro audio stuff, we were held in very high regards. There are some incredible albums that were worked on with dCS pro audio gear. The kit was, we came from the aviation side. The kit was designed to be bomb-proof.
Yeah.
And the lesson we learned is studios do not change kit unless it is on fire. And if it is on fire, they expect it to be repaired and replaced free of charge.
So rule number one of making studio gear, make it into something not too flammable and fuse it correctly.
There we go.
Avoid fire at all cost.
So we had a blip, a little anomaly, where there was a sudden spike in sales to Japan. What's the cause?
Yes.
And a group of people who are passionate about music had happened to find the 954 DAC. It was rack-mounted 19-inch studio gear, just a black front panel, the classic dCS blue font on it. Had things that aren't necessarily critical for home audio, like a de-emphasis button. Probably been a few years since you've seen a de-emphasis button.
Just a tad.
But they decided that this was the best thing since sliced bread.
Okay.
So there was a meeting, and the company decided, you know what? Consumer audio, like home audio, is probably where we should be.
Yeah.
So we're fortunate enough that we've got in Cambridge lots of other high-end, high-tech brands and partners. So one of the gentlemen from Meridian Audio kindly did the mechanical design for the first consumer box, the Elgar, where the core circuit of the 954 DAC was made much more user-friendly. Redundant features were taken out. It was optimized to be, what would you do if this is the problem you're trying to solve? D to A with a preamp circuit inside, and it became the Elgar, and we've never looked back. So this has turned into a bit of a shaggy dog story, but I believe the question was about kind of what we do. So
but I've been entranced by the. There's a lot of. There's assumptions that are made. dCS, it's another high-end brand. It's some guy with some money's gone and contracted out some CNC and some design work. But there's a much more interesting and a much older story, longer story than I had any idea. Now, David, you seem to know something about dCS. You keep nodding and going, yes.
Oh, no, it just takes me back to the 90s, because at the time I was working for a US software company called DigiDesign, which is now Avid, and we were selling a multi-track audio recording system called Pro Tools, which was one of the primary recording systems that the world started to use, replacing tape. Yes, you can blame me for that, thanks. And it was curious because during the 90s and certainly the early noughties, we'd go into studios and we'd suspiciously see our 192 and 96 interfaces being taken out and things like prisms and DCSs put in. And I'm thinking, what is this DCS thing of which you speak? And of course, I sat down and had a listen to one of the D to A converters. I think it was a 904 or something at the time, and I almost wept. It was just so far beyond the digital state of the art at the time. It was the most non-digital thing I'd heard. And I'd heard what is and God knows what else as well. But yeah, it's just been lovely for you to recount that history.
Yeah, we really appreciate it, actually.
Yeah.
Well, in your case, it's a nostalgia trip, but for me, it's news. So is the Cambridge thing. I mean, it's everyone knows. I mean, there's a ton of brands that have come out of Cambridge over the years. I mean, I can think of 3 or 4 without trying. I'm not going to even name them because clearly everyone knows that it's on the back of your equipment, proudly, handcrafted, or otherwise in Cambridge, and so that whole Cambridge thing is still travelling along pretty well. I mean, everyone thinks that not everyone thinks everything's made in China. Lots of people think lots of things are made in China, and clearly they're not. Where's DCS product made?
Everything
Clearly
is
in
made
Cambridge.
in Cambridge, in our factory in Swavesey. There are certain things we want to be the specialist. There are a lot of people who are jack of all trades. We don't do our own machining. We're lucky enough that in Cambridge
you'd be surrounded by
exactly.
Yeah.
So we've over the last few decades we've found the absolute best partners to work with. They're basically on our doorstep, where we border on obsessive. As you pointed out, a lot of the DCS gear is at a high price. So every single thing that comes through Goods In, our stores manager, Andy Reynolds, checks every piece of metal that comes in. After it's been machined, we check, and we are obsessive. Yes. Because when it costs as much as a car, it's got to be perfect.
Yeah,
it could get rejected at that point, and it's sent back to the metalworker. So they have learned the standard that we expect.
Perfection is, well, I assume it has to be perfect.
It has to be perfect. It gets checked again after it's been anodized. We've got a fantastic anodizing partner. Again, it's a short drive from us, so we can stay on top of quality control. If there's any inconsistency, if there's an irregularity, if it becomes a pattern, we'll go and see what's going wrong. We'll go and see what we need to change in terms of the production method to ensure that we are delivering something. If someone has a DCS Vivaldi DAC from 10 years ago, that if they add a clock to it, that aesthetically it matches, that the silver from the anode is exactly the same.
So it
has to be perfect.
There's a trick to that, right? So
we have when we close a box, when the actual production element has finished, we have a second technician come and check that there's not a bolt missing, that things are aligned, that the anodizing matches. It's after that we have a third person who was not part of the build comes over to put their name on the build to say, you know what, this is good enough to go in a box and go to a customer, because people are handing over a life-changing amount of money for this stuff. So I like to check seams where front baffle meets sides, and the tolerance on anything where a bolt goes through, it's 1/4 of a mil. But if you start to misalign a few of them, cumulatively you can get something that you can feel.
Yes.
And that's not good enough. Take it apart, have another go.
All of this adds up to an improvement in sound quality ultimately. I mean, it's not just in a sturdy box because you can, or it looks pretty. It is part of the equation, one assumes, as is, I guess, the quality of all of the components. And we should mention for the listener, and we'll have a photo of it, we are sitting here at a table with, what is the value of that piece of equipment?
Ooh, at the moment, you can't buy it on its own. This is part of a pair of mono DACs from
this is the mono DAC.
Yeah. So this is this was the culmination of a 6-year product development cycle.
Yes.
When David Stephen, the managing director at dCS, we should also say we're family owned. It's David and the Stephen family's business.
Okay.
So David has a vision for what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
We start with the flagship. It costs what it costs us to make. It takes as long as it takes to design. With the history in the radar and the pro audio, you also have to learn how to do test and measurement. We made a lot of the original test gear. In fact, the very well-known brand of measurement equipment that's industry standard can't measure DSD. So we built our own test equipment to measure the SACD stuff. We know when we've done something that's better than what came before it. The Veris project.
So this is your new 5-box solution.
That's it. It was decided that in order to improve upon the previous flagship, a streaming DAC preamplifier with an external clock would be 5 boxes. But the amount of yes,
better not tell that to Wim.
The end game, the goal for us is once we've shifted the benchmark, is how do you rationalize that? How do you find efficiencies in build, in things that you can condense down, that you can sublime, while still making it in Cambridge? The product that we've been playing upstairs in the sound gallery room, the Lena DAC X, that's the, I hate the term, that's the entry point to our range. It's still, it's still $24,000, but inside of it, it is exactly the same clock oscillators that you find in the flagship. It is the same concept of it's sat here next to me. We changed from plate to billet enclosures because electromechanically they are better, thermally they're better in terms of controlling the resonance. They're better. If you're going to do a product, that's the way to do it.
Hang on. So plate, did you just say plate's better than billet seats?
Oh no, billet's better than plate.
Yeah.
The last generation of products,
So here's the news. You have a product that starts at $24,000, which seems, considering the price of the 5-box solution, I believe, is the price of a decent exotic car, is incredibly affordable. So, and a lot of what's inside it is exactly the same, but you have cut a corner of building the box from plate.
Oh, no, upstairs, that's billet too. Yeah.
Bang bang. Thank you for playing.
Would you like to know how we
right now going bargain?
How we afforded to do that?
Yes, we'd love to know.
Yes,
Please tell us.
We would.
We had a new lead mechanical engineer. He'd come from big industrial projects, and he looked at the amount of time it takes to build something out of plate and us be happy with the finished product. So you've got to build an internal structure that everything's bolted to.
Yeah.
The decision was, will the increase in cost of the chassis doing it from billet, will that outweigh the saving in terms of labour?
Yeah.
And mucking around trying to get the fit.
Exactly. And when Muggins comes over and fails at third eye, and you have to go back
again.
So in the end, that was it. So we committed to billet as the chassis, and the first product, the Lena, when we put that through electromechanical compliance testing, it sailed through. It was an order of magnitude better at keeping inside any radiated fields from the ring DAC circuit and blocking anything else coming in. It proved to be the perfect way to design it. I've said the magic word ring DAC.
I was about to say that takes me back.
So the studio gear, we called it the decorrelating DAC, and it is this unusual, innovative step in between your traditional R2R ladder DACs and a Sigma Delta design. There are phenomenal R2R DACs out there. There are phenomenal Sigma Delta DACs out there. Both have got a few drawbacks and challenges.
What are they in your opinion?
Oh, okay. We have a deep respect for competitors that we see doing things that are good, sensible bits of engineering. The guys over at MSB put a factory tour video on YouTube, and we were blown away at how good their outfit is. The way that they're kind of averaging the errors that are intrinsic with R2R, will do a good job of reducing those distortions. Long term, any ladder DAC is going to wear in a non-linear fashion, so there are reasons why we do it our way. So we are what you'd call a thermometer coded DAC. Everything that we do, you mentioned earlier when I put the Veres on the table. Are you a ladder DAC? It looks like a ladder.
It does. Yeah.
However, in a traditional ladder, you would have your most significant bit, and then everything from there onwards is of half the value.
Correct.
So half, quarter, eighth, 16th, 36th. When we cycle back to that idea at the beginning of deviation from quoted spec with things like resistors, because in an R2R, when you get a digital word fed into it, each bit correlates with the same current source and resistor each time. If there's anything that isn't to spec, that manifests as a pattern of distortion, and the human brain is phenomenal at pattern recognition. So going all the way back to my shop, when I was listening to these mega DACs, there was something uncanny valley about what they presented to me, and this came down to those unusual digital distortions in that design, that they don't occur naturally, and the brain picks up on it. Yeah. The dCS, the delta sigma stuff doesn't suffer this. It's one bit. It's inherently self-referential, but one bit leads to really high quantization error. So imagine if you had a tape measure, but the smallest unit of measurement on it was an inch, and you're looking at something that's a millimeter along. You can't accurately define the amplitude. So we are a 5-bit design. So we're multi-bit, we are a PCM DAC, but we run at speeds similar to DSD. Yeah. It differs slightly depending on the base rate and the multiple it has to be, but we'll call it nominally, it runs at 6 megahertz. And there's an algorithm, we call it the mapper. It will modulate whatever you feed into dCS, turn it into the 5-bit code, and then apply samples to current sources, but in a quasi-random way. So if we imagine it has to make an amplitude of 5, it'll select 5 gates from the 48 per channel, and it will output that voltage. But then it will select a different 5 and a different 5 and a different 5 and a different 5 6 million times a second. Here we go. So
isn't this fun?
So the idea here,
my head's about to explode, but other than that,
any errors in the components are averaged out.
Yeah. I totally get it, yeah.
The trade-off is you can't wave a magic wand and solve every problem. That's not how engineering works. Good engineering is when you've chosen something to compromise on, but you get a net benefit out of it. So we get rid of the correlated distortions, but we do so at the expense of creating a bit of switching noise from running gates at really high speeds. Over the 40 years that the guys have been refining the algorithm, the noise pattern is really quite predictable. So we shape it, we push it way outside of the audio band, and then we use a gentle analog filter at about 300K to try our best to get rid of it. But the core idea
of course you do.
Yeah. The core idea of the DAC is that the human auditory system is a phenomenally good noise filter.
Yeah. It is, yes.
So when you're not actively concentrating on something, it's really good at blocking out other things. Whereas distortion is such an abnormal thing that you lock onto it.
Yeah.
So that's the trade-off. On a kind of subjective level, how would I describe that sound? The dCS sound was much more like the megadecs and high-end turntables, that analog sound. The engineering team are going to beat me up for this, but it was what I considered to be a natural, organic, analog presentation.
Yes.
But from a digital box.
Well, is that the goal? I mean, the goal. It depends what your analog representation is. I mean, if it's the finest tape machine that's ever been produced, is that your reference for where you?
So I guess this is where I'm going to use a really dangerous word. It felt more like music.
Yes.
So something that wasn't like more like, I'm not going to say live sound, because often you go and you see live sound and it's terrible.
Yes. But if you forget amplified live sound, we assume that you're in acoustically a pleasant space and someone's playing a violin.
and we call that the reference, it sounds, we all know it. When we hear, you're walking down the street of a city, you know whether there's a busker playing a live instrument or whether there's a busker with a backing track that's, you know, having a break and not playing their instrument. There are very few exceptions to that rule, and so I guess that is the reference then.
Exactly.
And this is what I guess most DA converters do not sound like, because of all of these unpleasant, we'll call them, or non-natural artefacts, which twig the human to the fact that we are now listening to a recording rather than potentially a live. And there are many other reasons, of course, why you would be able to detect that, and most would blame the loudspeakers, perhaps correct.
Well, given that that's just been said, would you still contend, given how far we've come with digital technology, that at a certain price level or a certain configuration level, that distortion is still there?
Oh yeah, you can't do away with it unless you have an interesting solution to get around some of the fundamentals. I've massively undersold the work that Andy McHarg and his team did with the mapping algorithm. I'm such a fan of Chris and Andy, the two lead engineers, that I'm wearing Chris and Andy cufflinks.
The listeners, if you could see, the cufflinks actually has,
we'll get a picture. In fact, what we'll do is we'll take a 2-second break.
Of course.
And we will be right back with more in-depth digital discussion from David, Alistair and myself. Do you remember the good old days when you'd walk into a HiFi shop and speak to the owner and they'd enthusiastically show you a range of equipment and be excited, perhaps even more excited than you were, about what they had to offer? And the reasons why they had it there is because it was great gear. It wasn't necessarily the brands you knew, but there were brands that you were about to know. Talk to Alex at the HiFi shop. Exposure Electronics, Neat Acoustics, EAR Yoshino. Brands you don't see everywhere. But at the other hand, Alex has all of the brands that you do see everywhere, so you can make comparisons. Visit the HiFi shop today, or visit the website today, hifishop.com.au. A touch of the old, very much a touch of the new. Is it like, I'm showing my ignorance here, but is it like it's not a balanced DAC, it's a mono DAC?
So we are a balanced mono DAC with a fully balanced from source Class A output stage. It is belt and braces. It is much like the cases if with the chassis. If there's a best practice of how to do it,
that's the way to do it.
That's how we're going to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
The clock challenge. The team went back to the drawing board. We realised that we didn't want to use AS67. We didn't want to use Ravenna. They rely on sending an external clock, and it's jittery. It's not the right way of doing it. So with these glorious new mono DACs that had the potential of being much better but weren't synchronised, the team worked on a whole new protocol for how we clock a signal. We use a pulse width modulation amplifier that sends out square wave. Devices are told to perform an operation when you've got rising edge and you have a trailing edge. Great, that's how we've been doing it for 30-something years. The innovation was, well, if we double the speed that we send out the clock signals at, we could tell devices only to do something at rising edges, and we can modulate the trailing edge, so we can tell it if it falls earlier than expected, it represents a 1. If it falls afterwards, it represents a 0, and we can embed some data in the clock signal. And this was a way they'd follow a counter, and everything would synchronize. The problem with the counter, linear counter, was it then made correlated tones that we could measure. So the next challenge, the team, we've had a patent granted on this now, and they've worked out a code that all the products know and understand that randomizes doesn't quite randomize it. There's a very complex set of rules that everything follows, but it manifests as just a kind of low-level noise now, as opposed to correlated tones and spikes.
Wow. Okay.
That allows us to plug everything in, and they'll measure what their relative latency is, and they'll adjust, and everything's perfectly in sync. Fantastic.
Yes.
One of the next things that the team decided that we didn't want the DAC to do was in our Vivaldi series, in everything really. Dual AES, the synchronous carrier that we devised for transmitting DSD content between boxes. The highest rate signal that it will happily carry before you get too much jitter in there is 384 kilosamples a second, or 352.8 if it's multiples of 44.1, and it will quite happily carry double speed DSD. So the ring DAC inside of a Vivaldi or a Rossini or a Bartok or the Lena that we've been listening today, they all have to do an internal upsampling stage in the main FPGA that then does the modulation for the mapper. And we decided we didn't want that computational function in the DACs. The DACs should just be doing the mapping algorithm and being a DAC. So
another box.
Well, not another box, but we were going to send them higher sampling frequency feeds than what the cable infrastructure that was available could do. We decided we didn't want to use Ethernet. We didn't want to do anything off the shelf because we could probably do a better job. The company did. Andy wrote the DOP format. They've been around doing loads of interfaces and protocols in the past from the Pro Audio days, so we've got the experience in it. So we sent one of our engineering team out to devise how we're going to do this new protocol. Looks like a cable, people will see it as a cable, and people should quite rightly be cynical that, oh my God, they're a cable company now. We're not a cable company. It's the partner that we teamed up with was Limo in Switzerland.
Yeah.
So there's a whole new interface that we call ACTUS, which is an acronym for Audio Control Timing Universal System. So there's one cable that'll carry whatever frequency you want to send audio-wise. The bandwidth capabilities of the interface are enormous. We've then got physically separated out clock signals, so 2 twisted pairs for the clock embedded in the same cable, and there's another twisted pair for control. So nice locking plug, everything's recessed, you can't break it. There's a system.
They do make nice connectors.
They certainly do.
It's a great plug. It's a good feel.
Yeah.
Has good plug feel.
Oh yes. There's a system on module that runs the decryption or encryption stage for how the ACTUS signal's sent, and at the moment the benchmark test we have for the cables that we have produced by Limo for the system is they need to be perfect at 50 meters. So absolute data integrity, nothing inferred, nothing picked up on the way. So hoping that much like the dual wire that you see on everything now, much like how DOP became commonly accepted, and I hope that in 5 years' time, just you see ACTUS on everything.
Okay. Wow, your knowledge of this stuff, Alistair, is outrageously impressive. Apparently you're not the smartest person at dCS.
Far from it. The Vares project, over the 6 years that it was in development, cost over 20 million Australian dollars, and I've got to say a large proportion of that went into the budget for the crayons that the engineering team had to get through to bring things down to my level.
Oh, sorry, I thought they were eating them.
No.
I don't think so. I think you may be exaggerating. I'm going to come away from this conversation feeling quite a bit less intelligent than when I walked into the room. David, have you got any questions?
No, I'm literally stunned about the development and the sheer granularity that you've gone to. It's something that I've heard no other manufacturer talk about.
Well, there's more to it. If you keep scratching at the surface, every facet of it, over having the benefit of the control with the software teams and everyone being in-house and doing everything with FPGA, where you can make it as complex or as bespoke as you need it to be. Every challenge inside of the box, we have put in some sort of either compensation mechanism or solution to. When I was a child, I've been into audio since birth. Pretty much. The HiFi.
Well, on the basis that you look about 33, I was hoping you might have started at birth, because to know what you know, you started early.
One of the things that I never questioned when I got my first CD player, I think named CDI.
When you were 2.
I wasn't very old. Still had pacifiers and nappies. I mean, I still have nappies, but the logic from my father was, if you're going to play a CD, Alistair, you turn off the screen; it'll sound better.
Okay.
And I never once questioned the logic. We do a few interesting things. So we have a proprietary phase lock loop. Our clock oscillators can be the compensation mechanism to keep them beating at the right speed is voltage controlled. We can regulate the voltage to them to make the crystal cool or heat up and increase or decrease the rate of change there. Screens, typically, we all buy them from the same place, and they'll come with an LCD microprocessor attached as part of the SKU that you get from the electronics wholesaler. And there'll be a 50 or 60 hertz refresh, depending on where in the world they're going to go, and 50 or 60 hertz is not an audio frequency. It's neither of the base rates. So we, on the Vivaldi series, it had the luxury of having its own FPGA. On everything else, we've condensed it down into the main board FPGA. We wrote our own controller for the screens that locks them to the audio speed that's being played.
Hang on.
Get out of here.
How many people work at this place?
There's about 50 employees.
Oh my God.
Of whom half you could put down into engineering and R&D. The sales team, which I reside in, is the smallest department in the company, because we'd like to think that we just don't need many people like me to sell it, because once people hear it and they have a similar experience to what you had in the studio and I had at the shop, it's really quite good, and it does quite an effective job of selling itself.
Yes.
Well, can I get back to that beautiful story about when you're in your shop and you had Wadia and God knows what else there? Because I do remember that time and how digital sounded. And then, Mr. DCS came in and plonked down a box. Can you articulate how the difference manifested in your perception? What attributes was it about the DCS that first wowed you?
There was absolutely no edge or artifice. It just felt like a real instrument, like a real person. I think it allowed the Wilsons to do what they could have always done in that room, and it just made everything feel more like how music should be. When we coupled that with the fact you didn't have to get up off the sofa every 17 minutes and keep something pristine, clean, and worry about the suspension on your turntable, it suddenly became quite a compelling argument.
Well, I've got a question, and that is that the $24,000 unit.
Yes.
Because the 5-box version of that, which obviously is greater complexity and what have you, and there's a few extra steps, and has the mono DAC in it, which the $24,000 one clearly does not. The price of the 5-box solution, because I want to draw the comparison here to some degree to offer what the real value. I think we understand at $24,000 with all of the trouble that the DCS is going to, is starting to sound a bit like a bargain. But the 5-box sell price AUD, this country, Australia, is?
It's about $500,000.
Whoa, baby. So you've got two choices. Well, there's models in between, clearly, but the absolute best thing that you can make is $500,000, and a very, very, very close version of that. Not too close, because then no one will spend the extra 476,000. Built in the same place, 24 grand. That's the story.
Yeah,
I think.
The flagships are phenomenal as technology showcases. We weren't expecting to ship quite as many as we have already. It's gone down.
So you sell more than one a year?
Oh, there's like 100 of them out in the wild now.
Oh my God. The world's gone insane in a good way.
But the goal is always like, let's go explore, let's innovate, let's make it all better. Yeah. But then at the end of that, you have to have a viable product that people can actually own. If I had the $500,000, my house could not accommodate a 5-box system.
I'd probably find room if I had it on loan for a while.
So something that will fit into normal homes. Well,
Yeah.
Correct.
it's that's what we strive for.
Yeah, look, thank you, Alistair. This is it's a crazy story. Some people may have switched off halfway through, and it would be a shame because it's sometimes you've got to actually do some work when you're listening to someone like yourself speak and listen and have a think about what's going on, because like you said, David, the granular level work, effort, R&D, design, engineering, all of these things, and then I guess finally looking at an open box at the moment, which I will remember to take some pictures of, carefully selecting all of those components and arranging them in such a way that they remain working for years to come. And the result of that work is this $500,000 contraption, which looks amazing, sounds amazing, haven't heard it, but I'd like to. The fact that you can buy a $24,000 version of that is the good news story. It's the trickle down technology, effectively. Any final thoughts, Alistair?
So if you're going to take a photo of this, I'd like to tell you what this thing was. So this is something I fly around the world with to show people as a kind of visual metaphor for what some of the stuff
Please
is.
do.
But this is all of the metal on this was just reject stuff that wasn't.
I was going to say this is rejects, I guess. Yes.
Deemed not good enough.
Yes.
This particular DAC board was one of the first pair that worked. And at that point, we hadn't finalized the new protocol, so we couldn't use the Actus transmission. We didn't have a clock for it at that point. We just had 2 red prototype boards wheeled into the demo room.
Yes.
We used a benchtop power supply.
Yes.
So we hadn't finalized the power supplies for them. And when I heard that today is going to be the day where we test out the new mono DACs, the differential ring DAC, my first thought was, I've known how the Vivaldi sounds for over a decade.
Yes.
This was December 2022. I genuinely don't know where the improvement's going to be found because of Vivaldi.
Yeah. That would be a concern.
Vivaldi's
right?
pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So we had these sort of jury-rigged into a Vivaldi upsample of the streamer in the range. Like I said, the benchtop power supplies to run them. And at that point, just hearing it, almost immediately when we started playing something through, it was significantly, undeniably better than the Vivaldi stereo DAC.
Yeah.
And the atmosphere in the factory that day, because this was year 4 of the development cycle, it had gone from this constant money pit where David's throwing money at me. And this was the first time we had something tangible.
This is a big
This was the
day.
light at the end of the tunnel that, God, it works.
A certain sigh of relief. Wow.
It's really cool now that it's out there in the wild, and it's all of the things that we learned from this project. We made the Lena series whilst we were still in development here, but this taught us how to do chassis design better. It taught us how to do power supply management better. It taught us how to do filtering better.
Well, that's right. There's a spin-off of all this R&D for building a better product. That obviously, we've already said the trickle down into the $24,000 unit. So hey, thanks so much.
My
we will
pleasure.
Let you
I've
get
really
back to your
enjoyed it. I hope it
room.
wasn't too dull.
Oh, not in the slightest.
all.
I mean, it's complex, uber complex, but very, very interesting. So thank you, David, for probing questions. Some probing questions.
I did try to get
Well, I think you've enjoyed this for the fact that you're familiar with the products from
Absolutely,
years ago, the
yeah.
history, the nostalgia, but genuinely big step forwards that they made, dCS made back in the day. Thank you, Alistair. I hope you've enjoyed Australia this visit. The weather's miserable, but it is spurts of sunshine.
If this is what you consider to be winter, you are winning.
Oh yeah, no, we are.
It's shorts weather.
All right, thanks again, and I hope you enjoyed it, folks. And check the dCS website, get the story.